Alright guys, this is going to be a nice quick one. Let's build the square tube front drive shaft for my 2000 Dodge Ram 1500 rock crawler. First thing you gotta do is measure the distance of your front drive shaft at ride height. For mine, 37.5 inches is gonna be the perfect drive shaft length. That's what we're gonna go with. Next thing you're gonna do is need to set up your square tubing you're gonna use, as well as cut off the U-joints from the old drive shaft that you already have. Really simple, I just cut those drive shaft U-joints off the old drive shaft and then laid them next to my new tubing I'm gonna use, and laid that at a 37.5 inch separation. The tubing I'm going to use is 2.5 inch receiver tubing that people use to make trailer hitches, as well as some 2x2 quarter wall tubing. And a quick note, the receiver tubing is also 1/4 inch wall. Okay, as you can see, I have about 6.5 inches of compression, as well as about 14 inches of slip. By the design of a square drive shaft, there's just basically unlimited slip. There's too much slip while you ever have an issue with it. That is why there's 14 inches of slip. In terms of compression, I have 6.5 inches of compression. The only thing you need to worry about when designing out how long you want your shaft to be is how much compression you have, because you don't want to pole vault your transfer case or your axle out of the truck itself. So 6.5 inches is probably about double what I realistically need, since I have shackles on the front of my truck. But other than that, that's what we're gonna go with. Those are the measurements. Like I said, I opted for front shackles when I designed this truck. That way the axle pushes into obstacles when I'm off-roading. That's why they're up front. What that also means is that since the axle pushes forward, there's way less compression on that drive shaft. So I'm looking good to go with 6.5 inches of compression on the square tube drive shaft. I'm also going to weld on a 2x2 plate onto the small diameter steel tube. That way I can completely waterproof that piece of the drive shaft. As well, the reason you use receiver tubing is there's no inlay in the middle of that tube. That means that there's nothing in the way to stop a 2x2 piece of steel from sliding in and out, and you don't have to grind anything, and it's just a nice simple fit. So that's why you use receiver tubing. So with all that being said, I'm going to stand these upright, square them off, and then weld them to the tubes themselves. Okay, those are about as square as I can get them on there, just by eyesight. The thing with these drive shafts is that it's only going to be spinning when you're in four-wheel drive, and you're never going to be doing that at anything higher than 30 miles an hour. So all this difference in weight, all these minute differences kind of just balance themselves out with the effects of the U-joints themselves. That's why these don't have to be absolutely perfect. It's not like this drive shaft will ever be spinning at highway speeds and cause any catastrophic failures. It's only going to be spinning at around 20 to 30 miles per hour, so all those minute vibrations kind of get washed out with the rest of the truck. So if you just look at the truck, there's so much more going on with the suspension and how the truck's going to drive. Any small driveline vibrations are going to be pretty minute in the grand scheme of things. So with that being said, I'm going to tack these in, fully weld them together, weld that little cap on the end of the smaller diameter tube, take them out, make sure they all slide in and out, throw some grease on there, replace the U-joints, and we'll be done with this one. Alright, so that's how the welds turn out. They're not the prettiest, it's hard to make these pretty, but there it is, all assembled and fully welded. Like I said, I did 2 passes on 220 volts at my 1/4 inch setting on speed number C on my Vulcan machine. I like it nice and slow, that way I can get nice thick fat beads and burn them in nice and sturdy. That way when there's some torque going through this front drive shaft, it doesn't snap off. That's how it looks. There is the transfer case end, and then over here we have the pinion end. So as you can see, that's how it looks. It's really simple. All that shaft is going to do is slide in and out that receiver tube, and at ride height, like I said, I should have 6.5 inches until that inner shaft touches the inside wall and pole vaults my transfer case. So next up here is going to be the grease the living shit out of this thing. I'm going to use Lucas extra heavy duty grease. I have a bunch of it, so I'm just going to lather the entire inside up, and my thinking is as soon as it starts making a lot of really ugly noise off-roading, I'll grease it again. So that's how I'm going to do maintenance on it, just keep putting a ton of grease in it. The only thing sealing the inside shaft and the outside shaft is going to be that grease, so you know, might as well be very liberal with it. So yeah, next thing to do is going to be replace all these U-joints. So I probably don't need to replace them, but since I welded the entire thing with the U-joints in, they're probably all cooked, and they're probably not going to be very efficient at what I need them to do. So I'm going to replace all those U-joints, make them look nice and pretty, paint this whole drive shaft black, buy a conversion U-joint to convert my normal Dodge drive shaft to my Super Duty axles. So I'll catch you guys in a few days when I get those U-joints in the mail and we can finish this one up. Alright guys, everything is painted, new U-joints are in. There you can see the design, everything's nice and greased up, everything's covered in paint. Inside of that is where the slip action happens between that 2-inch tube and that 2.5-inch tube for the receiver tubing. On the pinion end, we have a 1330 to 1350 U-joint conversion, and that's what we're using to convert to those Super Duty axles in the crawler. On the transfer case end, we just have two 1330 U-joints. Two quick notes. This conversion U-joint is a greasable U-joint. I usually don't run greasable U-joints. I like the non-greasable U-joints since they're just that little bit stronger inside them, and I usually need to replace them before I would have to do maintenance on the grease anyways. So I don't like running greasable U-joints, but that's the only one I could find on Amazon that could get here in 2 days. So one end's greasable, the other end's not greasable, and I'll just replace both those U-joints whenever they need to be replaced. Second thing is, you can see my drive shaft is in phase with each other. That means the ears on the pinion end as well as the transfer case end are both lined up together. As you can see, we have one ear being vertical and go over, and we got the ear being vertical on this side. That means they're in phase, and that's what you want in terms of minimizing driveline vibration. Not like this is going to vibrate at all, right? Right? The next step's going to be throwing it in the front end of the Dodge. It is raining out right now, and I'm waiting on some brake parts to get the Dodge nice and driving again. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and close this video out now, since there's not gonna be any driving and testing of this. But I do promise you next week I will release a video shaking out the whole Super Duty axle swap and rear end back halving and four-link, as well as square front drive shaft shakeouts. I'm confident it's gonna work. I don't think there's gonna be anything wrong with the front drive shaft, so the shakeout run's gonna go over all of these upgrades that we've done over the past few months to this Dodge. So yeah, until next time, have a great day. The Dodge is still underway, and we're making progress on it.